Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Flavius Toma. I work as a senior cloud architect at ProfitBricks. And today I'm going to give you a quick overview of our platform and how to build a complete multi-tiered clustered infrastructure cloud data center in 20 minutes. Hopefully the slides will take probably 5 minutes or 10, and then I can jump into the demo. So quick background, software engineering background. I was very intrigued and fascinated about software-defined networking and high technology in networking. Reason why cloud architecture was fascinating to me. So I decided to join ProfitBricks about 4 years ago, and ever since I'm deeply in love with networking and technology. And of course, with a startup, we're still operating as a startup, even though we have a few years history. When I'm not playing with technology, I enjoy cooking and, of course, eating. So that's one of the things I enjoy doing in my spare time. Now, I want to start introducing ProfitBricks to you, but to take a step back and backdrop into how our mission came up and why we have today an infrastructure solution that is so much different than our competitors. So going back into the history of our founders, Achim Weiss and Andreas Gauger, two gentlemen that started a web hosting company back in the early 90s when even Apache was too young to be used in production. And they built a company from a garage and into $1 billion business after acquisition. And of course, in 2008, Achim and Andreas decided to part ways with the giant company they've built, the web hosting globally operated, called 1&1. And they decided to take the challenge and build the next generation of cloud computing, which is what we have today to offer here at ProfitBricks. So Achim continued to innovate here at ProfitBricks. We introduced some of the technology used in the high-performance compute world called InfiniBand. This is a network interconnect that allows us to be more efficient, to bring performance to a cloud and deliver a very low latency networking. We have a KVM-based hypervisor. I would say it's a heavily modified solution, given the amount of work we had to put in creating a platform based on KVM. And we have introduced another innovative aspect into our cloud, which is a minute-based billing model. And I'm sure all the finance guys in the audience would be more than happy to see the benefit of that. Today, I would say the product, to conclude or to actually give you an overview of what we do, in a nutshell, we do compute, network, storage, and of course, we provide an interesting visual-based designer tool, a management software that allows you to build your data center. Okay. These are the 4 main points we have identified as being the most popular in the cloud space. We try to overcome them pretty simple by building a ProfitBricks infrastructure that allows you to run any x86, 64 compatible application without any learning curve, any software modification or software adaptation to a service, or to if you want a solution that has to modify your application anyway. There's no learning curve. If you look at our competitors' platforms, there's always a service you need to learn about. There's always something new. There's a language you need to learn how to speak. And of course, it takes months or weeks to educate yourself. Here at ProfitBricks, everything is pretty straightforward. I would say if you're familiar with managing your own hypervisor today or managing your own physical hardware, ProfitBricks is a fast way to deploy your applications into the cloud. And we do offer 24/7 support. US and Germany team of cloud architects and sysadmins. They're always on standby mode. They can help you, and feel free to reach out with any sort of questions. We do have a very interesting guarantee for price and performance. because we do realize that sometimes price is a problem, sometimes performance is a problem, sometimes none of them is a problem, sometimes both can be a problem. So for that reason, we want to kind of eliminate that aspect of our infrastructure. So for that, we do guarantee that any workload that runs on ProfitBricks today will cost the same or less than any infrastructure platform out there like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. So you will get better performance and at a lower cost. This is a slide that kind of walks you through the history of our infrastructure and how we innovated cloud. I think the best way to kind of explain how we did things and why are we different is to provide this analogy versus Cloud 1.0 or the standard way of virtualizing a server today, and how we did that different at ProfitBricks. So on your left-hand side, you have the typical server that has processors, CPUs, of course, RAM, and storage. What most of the cloud providers do today, they use hypervisors like VMware, Hyper-V, or Xen to virtualize that hardware and then provide like the preset size instances that can be small, medium, large, extra large. And what those virtual machines come with is usually virtualized hardware, right? You're never getting a physical ratio with the actual processor, right? The virtual machine always has a fraction of the actual physical hardware. So pretty much everything is built on a 1 to 10 gigabit Ethernet networking, which is another shared aspect of their infrastructure. What we have created here at ProfitBricks is by introducing InfiniBand, we kind of innovated the KVM hypervisor, which is very much different from everything else out there, that allows us to fully customize, granularly access cores, RAM, and storage is deployed over InfiniBand, a very interesting SCSI RDMA protocol that we use there to deliver this very low latency and high I/O block storage. So today, all our virtual machines can be fully customizable. They can have anywhere between 1 and 62 CPUs, 1 and 240 gigs of RAM, and up to 16 terabytes of storage. Everything we run on ProfitBricks is based on InfiniBand. So the servers, the physical hosts are connected to each other over InfiniBand. The storage servers connect to the servers over InfiniBand. And that allows us to bring a lot of innovation and some really cool things that I will explain over the demo that you cannot do anywhere else in the cloud. The data center designer, I mentioned we have a really easy to use, very intuitive provisioning tool. We call it Data Center Designer. You'll hear the acronym DCD. It's actually allows you to create very, very large networks. I was able to replicate 99.9% of the physical on-prem hardware using this tool. And the other interesting aspect is that it mimics the Visio-based, if you want, the deployment aspect that allows you to connect servers together, map the networking, you kind of deploy your network topology here, you configure your servers, you configure the operating system, and then you click a button called provision. Within 2 minutes, you have the servers up and running. Of course, Data Center Designer communicates with our RESTful and SOAP API. Around the API, we have created a large variety of SDKs. Of course, one of the most popular ones are Python, Ruby, Node.js, .NET, Java, and a lot of libraries like JCloud or Stock or Ansible, Chef, Puppet. And of course, we couldn't forget about Docker. We know how popular Docker is today. For that reason, we have created a very easy-to-use interface for Docker fans. So feel free to test that out. These are kind of the most common techniques used or necessary or mandatory for one that deploys a multi-tier architecture. You know, you have the load balancers, which are usually used in web-based applications. kind of distribute the workload, to create or scale an environment, and potentially protect for DDoS attack. Some examples, some open source examples are AJ Proxy, Nginx, there's Zen load balancer solutions, Camp, Varnish, and so on and so forth. There's caching solutions out there. Caching is obviously a way to kind of cache the request for the same content, and that way you will be able to deliver the same HTML content much faster. There's applications like Nginx, Varnish, Squid you can use. Firewalls or UTM gateway servers, these are other common best practices that people bring to the cloud today. Unfortunately, it's not very easy to bring your own UTM gateway application on any other public cloud platform. It must have support by the platform. With ProfitBricks, you have the ability to kind of bring your own image, and for that reason, you can deploy your favorite firewall. That can be pfSense or Andean or Sophos or MikroTik. We're able to run some of the old firewalls, or the oldest you've heard, Fortinet or Juniper. And another good practice, of course, it's database replication. In most common setups, you'll see databases are being replicated in two different zones. At ProfitBricks, the zones are deployed in two separate facilities. They're separate buildings using separate power grids, separate ISPs. They're completely independent from each other. Reason why a database replication doesn't compromise the speed. You're still going over InfiniBand fiber, even though you're in two separate independent locations. And some of those databases, of course, they all have replication capabilities, MySQL, SQL, or Mongo, and so on and so forth. I would love to continue to talk about this, but time is running out, and I think the Data Center Designer demo, it's precious. It's something that would help you understand what we do here at ProfitBricks. This, again, was built on top of the API, so I will actually show you some of the basic functionality and how to build this multi-tier design. Let me close this. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me close this for a second. Just to give you a sense of what this tool is capable of doing, you will see here, this is kind of a multi-tier infrastructure design that any SaaS-based application can use. This uses two Apache web servers. As you can see, I have one in Zone 1, the other one in Zone 2. Same thing with my MySQL database. I created this replication in the two zones. I have one database residing in Zone 1, the other one in Zone 2. I do this over InfiniBand fiber. I'm not compromising speed. As you can see, this is a LAN I have created between the two zones, and it's really easy for me to understand that communication happens internally. I can see the networking here on the right-hand side. Let me bring this into the center so that you can see where the network happens. So I can configure the network. I can actually configure here to have class A, B, or C type of private IP. These fields here are fully customizable. You're not tied into a specific layout for your network. Let me actually show you, because I think it would be very, very interesting for you to see how easy it is to build an actual data center. So let me jump into a quick demo. Let's just call this Demo DC. Oops. We're going to choose our US Las Vegas location for the purpose of this demo. There's other two data centers in the US, and I'm sorry, in Europe, in Frankfurt and Karlsruhe. And I mentioned each of these facilities, each of these data centers have two separate independent facilities. They're completely separated from each other, and you can take advantage of load balancing between the two without compromising the speed or paying for the internal traffic. So let's build, for example, two web servers here. You can drag and drop servers. You can see there's two completely independent entities here. I have the server separated from the storage. I mentioned how one of the aspects that we use to differentiate from our competitors is the fact that we don't provide ephemeral storage, or the storage that is attached to the actual host. So the host and the storage are completely independent in both physical and virtual. I'm connecting them together because this is a network storage that we provide. It is actually physically mirrored by default in two separate facilities, the ones I already mentioned. And in each facility, we have a dual redundancy on each storage block. So for that reason, you have a 4 times redundancy, overall redundancy of your entire block storage. We're going to connect this to web servers to the internet. We can, of course, choose to, as a good practice, choose to add a firewall appliance here as our secure gateway to the outside world. So let's build a little UTM appliance here. Let's call it firewall to simplify the terminology. We're going to choose minimum resources for this machine, and everything else will connect to the firewall. So every other instance we will build in our data center will go through the secure gateway. So let's build a small storage block for this to run this appliance. As you can see, I have the option not only to choose the exact amount of cores and RAM, so I'm not tied into that package. Today, if you were to scale from 4 gigs of RAM to 16 gigs of RAM, of course you have to purchase more of everything with the instance precise instances. We choose to use 2 cores and 2 gigs of RAM for this firewall appliance. Again, these are fully customizable and interchangeable. You can easily scale this, and it can actually happen live. For most of the Linux-based operating systems, you can scale live CPU and RAM. So let's create the 2 Apache servers here. Actually, let me drag a quick load balancer to complicate the diagram a little bit so that it makes more sense. So I can even add to this and load balance between these 2. You can see there's only a drag and drop deployment. So everything here, everything that I connect here happens through a drag and drop. It's really easy to make changes into your network and to see what's going on. I can zoom in and out so I can see what's being built. And I have a really cool wiki-based search here. If I can't really find a machine, I can easily just name it accordingly, and that way I can find it easier. So let's call this Apache 1, this Apache 2. We'll choose to have maybe 4 cores and 8 gigs RAM for this application. And same thing here on this side. Now, you can see I have the option to choose one of the two zones that we provide today. So I'll go with zone 1 and zone 2 for the other server. This way, I make sure that the hardware resides in 2 separate facilities, not only on 2 separate hosts, but independent facilities as well. And let's connect this 2 servers to a couple of database servers. There's a much faster way to build 2 similar instances. So for example, I can choose this composite that allows me to bring 2 servers with the same configuration much faster. Okay, let's call this MySQL. Let's choose 4 cores, 16 gigs of RAM for this instances. We'll choose an operating system, one of the ProfitBricks operating systems. Let's choose the CentOS 6, and we'll choose to build 2 similar instances. Now all I need to do is pretty much connect my 2 web servers to this database servers and choose one of the 2 locations for each server, and then I have completed my diagram here. So I'll choose for the first MySQL server zone 1, and for the second one I'll choose zone 2. And I'm going to just remove this server. As you can see, it's very easy to build a data center. I'm not sure if I'm running out of time here, but It is very easy to build a data center. You have the option to choose the exact amount of resources, a fire zone, and you can configure your internal networking the way you would in your own data center. For example, if I really want to add a different LAN to synchronize data between these two, to allow this database servers to communicate with each other, I can do so. Some of the best practices that you have today in-house can apply to our cloud. For example, let's say I want to add new storage volume for my database, and I want to host my operating system on a separate volume. I can easily do that. So I can just choose to have a data volume here, and let's say a log volume or a backup volume. So I can really have 4 separate volumes that play and that hold different data. And it is as easy as as dragging and dropping. So it really takes with this high resolution, it's a little tricky, but I guarantee you that the experience is much easier on your own laptop. So I can easily drag another storage here and say, okay, now I have separated my database data from my backup volume from my data volume. So I will have an operating system volume. I'm not going to name this OS. I will have a data volume here. Let's name this data. I will have a backup volume. And I will have, let's say, a log volume. So these are some of the best practices you won't find anywhere in the cloud. They're never intuitive. They're always hard to find. They're always tricky. And deploying this, it took me about 10 minutes. Of course, if you know what you want, if you have the architecture in mind, it's really easy to paint the picture here and then click a button called provision, and within 2 minutes, everything comes to life. This is the ease of use. There's some other cool tools here that you have access to, like managing your own images. You have the ability to bring a VMware Hyper-V image into our cloud, and you can run it as if it's a ProfitBricks supported image. You have the option to snapshot an image and deploy that server over and over again. There's an IP configuration section here that allows you to configure static IPs, and a manage user section that allows you to easily keep track of your technicians and what sort of permissions they have. You can set permissions for some of them to create data centers. Some of them can only access data centers, but you can decide what to do as a super admin user. And those are very, very intuitive to set as well. You can see I have an admin group that allows me to access pretty much all the data centers, create data centers, create snapshots. I can reserve IPs, and I can see who are the members of this group. And another interesting section for the finance guys in the audience, I would say it's the cost and usage section that allows you to take a look at what you have running today, what kind of virtual data centers you have, and how much you're actually spending for each virtual data center. And a great practice would be to separate your virtual data centers and break down your production, your staging, your Q&A, your support, and that way you keep track of the cost and of course the resource management much faster and much easier. Let me jump back to the demo so you have access to my contact information. In case you have any questions, we have a booth here at the Expo Hall. It's number 608. If you would like to get a more in-depth or if you have any sort of technical questions, I would be more than happy to assist you right now or at the booth. Feel free to join, and thank you for waiting for me to finish the presentation. I appreciate it. Sure.
On the storage, is that RAID 5 or is it automatic that way?
Yeah, it's by default. We set a combination of RAID 1, RAID 10, RAID 0. It's software and hardware RAIDs, but those are by default configured so that you get a 4 times redundant storage block.
I love the ability to diagram out your stuff right there. Can you that to create something and get a pricing of what that would be, and stuff like that, so you can say, oh, that's too much, I'm going to change this or do that, or is that available, so to speak, offline, so that we wouldn't accidentally create anything, but we can use that to kind of lay out and get a feel for what we want to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sorry, if you.
Cool.
Yeah, there's an actually calculator that we created especially for that purpose. So you can go to our pricing page and actually see what that looks like. I can even show it to you right now, since we're still here, ProfitBricks.com, and then you have access to our pricing page, and here you can just play with this little calculator and say, oh, I want to build 2 web servers, I want to build 2 database servers, and kind of configure them the way you want. And of course, you're not provisioning here, so that you're not in jeopardy of billing your credit card by accident. So I can just do 2 of these instances.
$10,000.
Almost, yeah. But no risk here, right? It's all it's all front end. So yeah, obviously you see the cost here, and there's one little detail that usually people can estimate or sometimes are well aware of, which is the outgoing traffic. We don't charge for incoming traffic, we only charge for outgoing traffic. So if you're interested in actually getting a more accurate, if you want, quote on this diagram, you can just estimate the amount of traffic, but you can see it's pretty low given the fact that we only charge 8 cents a gig. This is the easiest way to get a sense of what you would be spending at the end of the month. And this is only for those environments that are running 24/7. There's environments that you, like staging or dev environments, that you can stop, meaning deallocate and not pay for those resources. So you have the option to kind of power down a server and not pay for that server. You would only pay for the storage that is attached to it. Yeah, it's a great tool. I think you will definitely be interested in giving it a try. I know we have had previous conversations about it, but I think it's going to help you. Guess that's it. Thank you. Well, I appreciate stopping by. Thanks.